In yesterday's video, I talked about the timing of Kellyann Conway's exit from the White House as it relates to what she and her family are experiencing and as all of it correlates with her planetary cycles. It's interesting to consider her astrological connections to Donald Trump because they illustrate a common principle in astrology and because they might foretell what we will see in their future relationship. Kellyan's chart can be understood through her three big planetary configurations: a T-square with Moon opposite Neptune and Venus at the top, another T-square with Sun opposing Jupiter and Mars at the top, and finally an opposition with Saturn on one end and Pluto conjunct Uranus on the other. How does all of this interact with Trump's chart patterns? I would say the Moon-Neptune-Venus T-square aligns fairly well with Trump. The Neptune Moon is along his zenith midheaven axis, and it isn't challenging anything too tightly. And the Venus is very helpful toward agreement and support as it sextiles the Moon South Node and trines his Sun Uranus North Node. All of this from the 7th house, a place of partnership. Also, keep in mind that this pattern of support was greatly aided by a transiting Jupiter in Libra during 2016 and 2017, when it trined and sextiled all of these relational connections. Now I say fairly because you can see potential disagreement when you connect these planets to his rising Mars and Pluto, and you start to see squares and oppositions, which haven't been activated yet because we currently do not have major planets transiting through the fixed quadruplicity. The other two patterns are another story. It's all challenge or dynamism, depending on how optimistic you want to be. Certainly, if we are looking at the last 4+ years, we'd have to go with dynamism, since she has stuck to supporting Trump come what may, and she spewed forth her alternative fact theories time after time. The Sun-Jupiter-Mars T-square is linked uncomfortably to Trump's 12th house, Saturn-Venus, through conjunction, square, and opposition. Those 12th house planets are where he keeps his secrets and commits and hides his crimes. He definitely doesn't want you to poke around in there, and the Saturn opposition to Pluto-Uranus lines up quite uncomfortably with Trump's Sun-Uranus node to Moon node opposition by squaring it on both ends. I think we're already seeing the result of these last two configurations because by 2020, both have been activated by major transiting planets, Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto, and the net result is she has to leave. The reasons don't really matter in this sense. What counts is the transits have correlated with an unraveling. Now we look to the future and we see that all three areas will continue to be activated for some time to come. The T-square linking to Trump's 12th house planets will still have Pluto going through there in the next 2 to 3 years. The opposition of Saturn to Uranus-Pluto will be Neptune transit activated and challenge his Sun-Moon opposition, also for the next 3+ years. And finally, the Moon-Neptune-Venus T will start to get Saturn transit pressure next year, at which point you wonder if Kellyann will stick with her support for the Orange Menace. The point I'm making with all of this is to say that people are drawn to each other via a mix of easy and hard aspects, supportive and challenging, harmonious versus dynamic. This is also true of standard romantic relationship as well. However, if the challenges outgun the harmonies, sooner or later, harmony turns into disharmony and love turns into hate. This is well illustrated in Trump's relationship with Michael Cohen, as reflected by their planetary interchanges, where the disharmonies clearly outnumber the harmonies. Similarly, I would say that even as Kellyann gave her Trump-supportive speech during the Republican convention, it's still true that her astrological connection to Trump is challenge top-heavy, so I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see her turn on Trump over the next few years. Could be sooner, could be later, but Trump is definitely vulnerable to another defector from his cult. Does any of this mean I condone, much less support what Kellyann is up to? No, not at all. I consider her to be a cynical opportunist with a corrupt value system, and though I don't think she's nearly as dangerous as Trump himself, her actions the last few years are completely reprehensible. However, I'm practical enough to accept that the enemy of my enemy is in some way my friend. So if as time passes she sticks it to Trump, I'll be about as happy as seeing any of his previous friends or supporters help to take the Orange Menace down.